Good evening, everybody. We're going to call to order the budget hearing of the school board. The purpose of tonight's hearing is to go over the budget prepared by the school board in the district and discuss the warrant articles that are going to be, or the budget-related warrant articles as prepared by the board that are going to be up for the vote at the district meeting in March. So the plan for this evening, I think, just to keep things orderly, is to just walk through the articles as they are listed on the warrant. There should have been, I think there's copies of that.
There was copies of the budget.
There's copies of the budget out in the foyer for anyone that wants to see that. But we'll go through and we'll take questions as we go through them. So we'll start with the first one, take board comment, take public comment, so that we can move through in an orderly fashion. And everyone will have an opportunity if they'd like to speak on each of those articles. So first article 1, I don't think we need to do anything with that one. It's not a budget related one. Article 2, 3, and Article 5?
Yeah.
Is the first one.
Well, Article 4.
Or Article 4, okay, sorry.
I would start there.
Yep. So Article 4, to see if the district will set salaries of the school board at $1,000, the vice chairperson at $1,250, the chairman at $1,500, the board negotiations team at $150 per day, the moderator at $90 per meeting, the school district clerk at $250 per meeting, the ballot clerks at $80 per meeting, the supervisor of the checklist at $90 per meeting, and the school district treasurer at $4,180 per year. The money for this article is included in Article 5. That's the budget. Is there any board comment related to Article 4? Is there any public comment related to Article 4? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to Article 5. To see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate the school board's recommended amount of $8,654,275 or $270, sorry, for the support of schools, for the salaries of school district officials, employees, and agents, and for the payment of statutory obligations of the district, and to authorize the application against said appropriations, such sums as are estimated to be received from state aid, together with other income, the school board to certify to the selectmen of each town, the towns of Lincoln and Woodstock respectively, the balance to be raised by taxes by the towns of Lincoln and Woodstock in accordance with the formula adopted by the Lincoln-Woodstock Cooperative School District. And the school board further to certify to the selectmen of each of the towns of Lincoln and Woodstock the amount to be raised by taxation by each of said 2 towns. This article does not include appropriations contained in special or individual articles addressed separately. That encompasses the amounts that you'll find and the line items that you'll see in the draft budget that there's copies of. So this budget was done a little bit differently this year after the elimination of the budget committee last year. It was primarily the responsibility of the school board to review the budget prepared by the district and by the administration. And we did that. We went through the budget line by line. We reviewed all of these budget items. And we believe we've crafted a responsible and reasonable budget for the district this year. The budget supports quite a bit of stuff here at the school. It's 43 teachers, 30 support staff, 270 students, including 55 students with special education needs, IEP plans, and things of that nature. There's two buildings in the district, several grounds. There's a number of co-curricular activities, including sports, summer enrichment programs. We have psychiatric or psychological services, social worker services, transportation, meals, and quite a bit of additional educational opportunities in the high school, including vocational opportunities. We have charter school opportunities. We have advanced placement opportunities. And so that budget represents essentially all of the costs of providing those services to the students of this district. So overall, sort of the bottom line or the highlight found on page 2 of the draft, you'll see total gen fund before debt and fund transfers. That is essentially what boils down to the operating costs of the school. You'll see general fund that in the next line item down, that includes some some debt servicing and things like that that are not necessarily related to the operational cost of the school. And then further down, total budget, the total special funds, district budget and warrant articles. Those are, there'll be votes to specially approve the warrant articles. The special funds are funds that are offset by income, either through food service income or grant funded income. But those are not funds that are going to be having a tax impact on the residents of the towns. So the big picture operating cost of the school is the line sort of in the middle of the page, titled total general fund before debt fund transfers. That is approximately 1.2% increase from last year. So what we see as a fairly modest increase, given the state of inflation here, both in New Hampshire and nationally. We saw some unfortunate, unavoidable increases here, rather significant increases, one of which is our heating costs, basically fuel costs, went up by a significant amount. I believe it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $37,000 this year, $39,000 this year. In addition, we had some additional special education costs, including out of district placements, to the tune of approximately $90,000. So what you'll see is those costs that are not something that we can control represent the majority of the increase in the school's operating budget this year. So the administration delivered a very responsible, I think a very tight budget to the board. The board made some adjustments to that, including trying to utilize some funds that we've set aside in the form of trust funds and the like to offset some additional costs. And what we're presenting to you tonight, we believe is a fair representation of what we believe the costs are to the district for next year. So with that, and just one other issue is, salaries and benefits represent approximately 76% of the school's budget. So those are fixed costs. Those costs on average went up about 3.5% this year. So it was between contractual raises, those went up 3.5%, but we still only had a 1.2% increase in the budget. So the 24% of the budget that we can control, I think we did a good job doing so. So at this point, we'll take questions or any comments from the board, if there is any. And then we will open it up to the public for comment on the budget. Warrant Article 5, which is the budget. Mr. Sherwan?
Yeah, just for clarification, so you're saying the $8.1 million is what you're saying is the budget, is that right?
So what that is the operational, that's basically the operational cost of the school. So that's not taking into account debt servicing for things like the science from project that was financed over a certain period of time. And there's some additional swaps of money that goes back and forth from funds coming in, funds going out, that we have to gross appropriate for. So you'll see we have to essentially appropriate for the entire cost of the food service budget and entire cost of things that are grant funded, but then we get that money back. So some of the stuff that you're seeing in lines below that is stuff that's not going to have a tax impact to the taxpayers, or stuff that is not part of the operating costs of the budget. Some of it's just finance charges from projects that were approved by voters in prior years.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand, and I understand what you're saying about the special funds and the grant money, but I'm just, for that $1 million delta, how much of that is actually funded by the taxpayers?
So
between the 8.1 million and the 9.1 million, approximately $1 million, how much of that is actually funded by the taxpayers?
I'll have to defer to Deb on that. I don't have.
So about 100 and so the 95,000 increase that you see there.
Yeah, I
in
see
the
the
general
90.
fund, plus the increase in the debt, the 46,000, that will be funded by the taxpayers, right below that.
The 46, the 95 and the 46?
Yeah. And then, and that's it,
So,
in that section. And then when we get down to warrant articles,
right,
some, they're gonna discuss those. Some of those will be funded by taxation. Some of them are from unassigned fund balance. So technically, if there's any money left over from this year's budget, those will get funded. So there will not be a tax impact, but they'll go through those individually.
okay. So the 430,000 on the warrants, the 46,000 on the debt service, and then the 95,000 delta, right?
So the information that Jay just went over for the general operating budget,
The
including
8.1,
including debt service, the tax rate impact for Lincoln, a resident in Lincoln would be about 11 cents per thousand
in Lincoln.
in Lincoln. In Woodstock, it'd be about 17 cents per thousand.
So just from, okay, so if we assume, all right, so I'll just add in those numbers for total budget for my own references for the warrants and stuff like that. I just want to make sure I'm using the right number. So is somewhere in here like the cost per student, and what number would you be using for that?
That's not reflected in here.
That's not reflected.
We do have some information from the state. This is state, we can go back and.
Yeah, I know, but the
calculate
state's a little funny because they subtract things out when they do it. So it's like
that. Because they
10,000
recognize
below. what-
one-time expenses, things like that, or there's certain expenses that they take out for all districts, so they're all compared apples to
Right.
apples.
Right, I'm just, okay, but I mean, at the end of this, a fair number is somewhere between 8.1
Yeah,
and 9 million. Yeah, I mean, if you just cut the difference.
you know, I mean, a big thing, they talk about cost per pupil, right now, schools are getting millions of dollars from ESSER fund grants.
Right,
That's gonna put that.
right, but
cost per
we're
pupil-
talking our funds are
Well, I'm just saying,
basically
but we're
what they
getting those
were.
funds too, and that's how the state,
No, I understand that.
So when
I
you look at
understand
that number,
And that's definitely something you can consider, but we're
Yeah.
talking about basically the same budget as last year.
yes,
Okay,
yeah,
right,
yeah.
okay.
Any other public comment on Article 5?
On Article,
5,
the
budget.
the budget. Yeah, I just have a few questions. I'd be interested in. Does the budget include any new programs that have been added that weren't there last year, or removal of any programs? And the second question I have is the need next year for paras the same as it's been, or do you see a change in that? And I think you said 43 teachers. I believe that's less than we currently have, if you could comment on that. And then you might have said it already, but what's the, where has the overall student population gone compared to where we were a year ago?
So I'll start with that one. The overall student population is about 270 students. I think that's roughly the equivalent to what we had last year.
Yes.
There have been some additions to some of the things that the school is using, programs that the school is using, science and math programs for the middle school, elementary school, and going into the high school as well, sort of to try to connect some of those programs. We're also using, but some of this stuff is grant funded, so it's not stuff that's being included in the budget. Some of it's stuff that was paid for in the last budget. I don't believe that in this budget that we have any sort of new educational programs funded in it, as far as I can recall, sort of like a new math program or anything like that. That's typically a pretty big ticket item, and we don't have anything like that this year. But we are using new science and math programs in elementary school, and I believe middle school as well, and that's being with the idea that we're connecting through the middle school into the high school to help sort of tie all the educational components together. So the number of teachers was 43 teachers. So that represents what we expect for next year. So over the past 2 years, we've had the equivalent of 2 full-time positions sort of eliminated out of the school. So we've had opportunities to reduce staffing, and I believe it was in the form of 1 full-time and then 2 half-time positions. 1 half-time position is going to be is eliminated in this current budget. So it'll be over the last 2 years plus this budget, it'll be 2 full-time, equivalent of 2 full-time positions reduction. So if that's different than what you recall, it's probably part of that. And that's just the administration has seen opportunities to reduce staffing when we can still provide the same level of services. Generally, we do that through attrition. If somebody retires or moves on, and we find that we can not replace them, then that's the way that we typically go about that. But right now, I believe 43 is the number that we expect for next year, based on the need of the district. Was there another question in there?
Paris?
Oh, Paris, actually, give that question.
Budgeted as what we have today.
Okay.
They're budgeted as what we have today.
One of the,
It's 30 support staff
30 support staff.
and administration.
So that doesn't, that's not all.
That's not
paras.
just parents.
Yeah. So one of the tricky things about paraprofessionals is they're generally working with the special ed population, and that fluctuates based on the need of the district. So sometimes we have some new students coming in that have higher needs, or we have students leaving or graduating or moving from one, elementary to middle school, and their needs reduce or change. And so that typically will fluctuate based on the need of the district. There has been, at least in the past couple of years, a fair amount of turnover in those positions, or there's been some people leaving and some people being hired. And so generally we hire as needed for those positions. But that's what typically the way that they determine what to put in, what to include in the budget for next year is based on the needs that we are aware of from this year. So it's sort of flat funded from this year based on what we believe the needs are going to be. Or what I say we, it's not, the board isn't obviously doing on the level of trying to decide what how many paras we need. That's the administration, but the idea is that the administration is making the decision about, staffing levels based on student need. Fine.
Yes. Do you have any idea how many students have shown interest in the Education Freedom account?
I don't have an answer. Dr. McGann may.
The education freedom account, was anyone contacted?
No, we haven't heard anything.
And you might not, that's a state program. I was just curious. There's been an awful lot of interest in it statewide, far exceeded, far went over the budget that they anticipated. I just was curious, if folks were interested in this district.
Any other public comment regarding Article 5? Yeah.
Now that Jerry mentioned the new programs, I was looking over some of the test scores from 2019, 2020, when we implemented the new math programs and science programs based on test scores. And we also had a very low informational text, as I remember the principal was mentioning, for the middle school. And at that time, they said, well, we aren't going to introduce multiple programs because usually only do one a year. So we have to space out how we're implementing those programs. But we were promised that we would implement a new English program, an ELA program in the middle school. So I'd like to know what's going on with that, and what about continuing to get this curriculum going and getting maybe a curriculum expert in here to shore up that thing. I know we're working with Demonstrate Success, or were at one point in time, to try and identify that whole dearth of children that were, I wouldn't say left behind, but received, I don't know what we want to call it, substandard education. And right now, our high school dropped. Those kids are now entering high school, and our math scores dropped 40%, not due to COVID, not due to disadvantage. And our science scores also fell substantially due to these kids coming through and not getting the right curriculum. I know Miss Ever introduced new curriculum. We had no programs in her program, and she's had some success with that in the elementary. And so these kids are coming up, but we won't see the same test scores that we had in the high school for something like 5 or 6 years. Correct me if I'm wrong. Those same kids are coming through. They're going to have horrible test scores year after year after year after year. So, I don't like spending money because there's people with fixed incomes out there who can't afford it. But at the same time, I think we owe it to our base to get the right curriculum. I don't know if curriculum expert is that's what some other educational professional told me was the way to go. But what are we doing? I also suggested almost 2 years ago to bring in academic audits from demonstrated success to see where our weak points are. And actually, the citizens of Lincoln and Woodstock have voted almost 50 votes to get that on the ballot. So you see that coming. I hope all you vote for that. But this is a very serious thing. And I know we had the presentation last week of the test scores, but I didn't see anything in there. I had some issues with how it was presented, but or the information was presented, not how it was presented per se. But I didn't see anything saying, here we are with these 40% reduction in math, 45% reduction, percentage, not points, but percentage, huge reduction in science. These are our problems, and how are we going to fix them? So we're doing a budget, and we were promised a new curriculum for the English. I just don't have a good feeling with this budget that we are addressing the issue of these very, very, very substandard test scores, especially when they've been pointed out many years now. So are we going to include some sort of, or plus this up by a delta? I don't care. We need these, I think we need these programs, with the expertise that we have here to get these programs in and with demonstrated success. There's nothing wrong with bringing a second opinion into the place, which we've already are amenable to, apparently. I don't know how that's working out. But demonstrated success has, with a 5-year program, documentation here, they brought a school that was ranked 247 in the state, and they brought them up to number 2 over a 5-year period. It's pretty impressive. So why can't we do something like that here? We already know the people, they've already been to the school. It's okay to get a second opinion. I talked to the president, it's only $35,000. It's not a lot of money for a $8.5 million budget. That's about the cost of one child per year. That's my recommendation.
Just to respond to one part of that, we are working with demonstrated success, and we do have a contract with them to work with the kids. So
right,
that
and it's a very small contract, right?
well, it's actually more than what's being proposed on the actual warrant article, the proposed warrant article, which we will talk about later because it is budget related, and how that proposal may actually limit the amount of money that we can spend. We have a contract that already exceeds the amount of money that is being, I guess, requested in that warrant article. But that's we'll hit that.
Well, I
at the
understand.
end.
Yeah, I mean, okay, but I don't think that still addresses the curriculum portion of getting a new curriculum in here, or getting demonstrated success with a full up academic audit.
And I would note, I guess, that the district has been pretty creative using ESSER funds for adding additional educational supports, for basically adding an additional student support teacher, helping to implement the Amplify Science in the middle school, and paying for the demonstrated success involvement in the elementary school. And we've been able to do that without using budget money. That's been money that we've been able to sort of use. It's essentially COVID relief money because it's characterized as sort of catch-up education Yeah,
Okay.
learning loss assistance. And so we have been working, the district has been working on a number of things using grant funds. And so the reason that you don't see some of those things in the budget is because Deb and the administration have been able to use non-Lincoln Woodstock taxpayer money. I mean, it's all taxpayer money at the end of the day, but non-Lincoln Woodstock taxpayer money for that. So.
Yeah, and I absolutely applaud, and I understand people are working for it. I guess, we had a meeting over in Woodstock with, over 100 people, because I didn't feel they had transparency with the process going on. And when you talk about what you just said, and it's not being in the budget, when you have a presentation by the administration of the test scores and not even mentioning what is going on and how we're manipulating the expertise to bring those students up, that wasn't there, period. So asking for transparency in the presentation for, the quote unquote report card that's supposed to be done, and transparency in the budget, so we know that we're getting and paying for a new curriculum in the English department, a new curriculum in bringing up whatever you want to call it, these underperforming students, and addressing the issue, because I still, even after this discussion, I don't see how we're addressing that 40% decline in math in the high school and the 45% decline in science in the high school. I did not, I could be missing something, but I didn't get that.
We can
Yeah, if you'd like, Dr. McGann can
add
provide some additional information.
So we have implemented the math program, K through 5. We've also extended that now to the middle school
In Eureka.
and high school. So that has recently been done. That was reported to the board at one of the board meetings. And also it's in the report card and information. So also with the science, the elementary, we just developed, but a few years ago, we did the curriculum for the science and moved and created the next generation science curriculum, which was based on the New Hampshire standards as soon as they changed them. When the New Hampshire state standards change, the districts go back and rearrange their curriculum to match the standards or correlate with the standards. That has been ongoing. Next summer, we will be working on our curriculum and starting to revise that.
The curriculum,
Different subject areas. I believe we're going to be doing ELA next summer.
so ELA is going to be implemented?
That's going to be one of the
Or this summer or
curriculum
next summer, 2022 or 2023?
in the summer of 2022.
Okay, this summer.
We will be working on the ELA curriculum, K through 12. That will be worked on this summer. So each year you work on, different projects, and we've been focusing on the programs that we've implemented, the science and the math throughout. And ELA was implemented K through 5 as well, a program was. So now we're working on the.
Yeah, okay, that was implemented a couple of years ago, right? 3 years ago, right?
It started a few years ago, yep. And so now, we're just continuing to move forward with all of the programs and the curriculum that are out there and that we have to revise. And we'll continue to do that.
Okay, well, I guess when we're talking about transparency, again, that's not in the budget, okay? I'm glad that you said that. I haven't seen the results from how the curriculum is doing right now. But I guess, I'd have a lot better feeling for this budget if we had an outside curriculum. I think now you're talking, if you include the summer, you're talking about 7 curriculums, right? Over the last 3 years, is that right? 7 new curriculums?
May I make just a point of clarification? The curriculum are the standards that we teach. The programs that have been implemented are to assist in the delivery of that curriculum.
Right.
So when Dr. McGann is saying that we're going to be doing work on the curriculum, she means that we're looking towards doing a vertical alignment project, starting with our English language arts curriculum And those are those standards through the Common Core State Standards and the College and Career Readiness Standards. And that is what we're going to be looking at to make sure that no standards are being left out and make sure no standards are being more heavily focused on than others. And we'll do that through a process of going through each standard, different teachers, what their programs, the support programs, and then their own work is doing to support all of these different standards. So we have a very clear vision of whether or not there are any gaps. Because we have actually in the last 5 years been adding different supports to the curriculum, to teaching the curriculum, it's time for us to take a look and make sure that we don't have gaps. So when you're saying
I'm mixing curriculums and programs. I get
Yes.
that. I get that.
And it's just, you know, I just wanted to make sure that you're understanding, we don't buy a curriculum. We have a curriculum. We use different support materials. Sometimes we use teacher-made things. Sometimes we have things that we purchase from, you know, a scholastic entity that does that. It just depends. It depends on what we have in place, where our gaps are, and what kind of supports we need.
Right. And when you say what you have in place, when you first got here, there were no programs.
No, there were programs.
There were programs.
There were programs, but they weren't suiting the needs of the students. They weren't following the Common Core State Standards in the way that they should have been. And one of them was then obsolete and had gone out of business. And there was no way for us to hold to, I mean, had we wanted to stay with that program, we could, because there were no more materials, the company went under.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna ask you why we didn't have any,
Why we didn't have any what?
why we have out of date.
Well, because they have a life cycle. I mean, any support program by and large has a life cycle. And then in 2012, the state mandated that Common Core State Standards be adopted by all schools in the state. So if you had bought a program prior to 2012, you wouldn't throw those all away. You were trying to figure out ways to bridge the gaps using like a curriculum mapping situation where you were looking at what this particular program could offer and what you needed to do to supplement because it wasn't hitting certain standards that were now an expectation for that grade level.
Right.
Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yeah, and so for example, like when we had the very, very low geometry test scores as a principal presented the year before last, they weren't mapping over. So they were teaching geometry and then they stopped teaching geometry because the curriculums didn't match, or was it the programs that didn't match?
I don't know if I'm in the elementary building. So I can't
You don't stop teaching the content area. That's not what's happening. There could have been a disconnect between the standards that they were following, whether it was the Common Core standards or standards that happened prior to that. You don't stop teaching them.
Well,
And those are very word I'm looking for, but from year to year, what you're looking at is the standards and when they're approached. So your geometry standards might be hit in like 6th grade, and you're not going to see much variation between that and maybe the 8th grade for geometry standards. So it could be two very different things. I think what's happening is there's some confusion going on, obviously, and when we keep talking about the individual pieces, what we're talking about is areas that we can work on to fix those things. You keep bringing up like the geometry standards, or you mentioned another standard earlier, but those are things that are addressed in the curriculum and then supplemented again with the program that we're talking about. And that's what we work on from year to year. And then when you talk about the test scores from one individual, from one year to the next, you're talking about the difference between maybe there's 23 kids in one class and about 7 or 17 the next. And so that percentage you're talking about could be represented by one person, and you're going to drop about 8%. So
Well, I'm just saying for my
what you're
term,
going at.
I mean, I'm just looking at the geometry for the 4th grade. 3 to 5 was about 60% proficient, and then for the 6th grade it was about I don't know, 10% proficient. So you had a huge gap in between those two. That wasn't just one individual, obviously. And then, look at the, again, back to the English, you have writing proficiency about 100%. For 3 to 5 and 6 to 7. And you have a reading proficiency that's about 25%. That's a huge, what's that disconnect about? I mean, there shouldn't be a 50, 60% disconnect between reading and writing, right? I mean, these are your figures, right?
Now, I'd have to look at I'd have to go back and look at all the individual students and do an analysis on that to answer some of the questions that you're asking right now.
I mean, this is what we did in
I
2019,
understand,
2020.
I get it.
This is, I'm just repeating what the principal said, 2 years ago. And I'm asking, why don't we have what we said we were going to address, and we aren't addressing it? Well, you said maybe we're addressing
I didn't say
parts of
maybe.
it.
I didn't use the word maybe.
What's that?
I did not use the word maybe we're addressing it. You just said I said maybe, and I did not. I said that we were addressing, what we do is we do an analysis of all the students' data, and we go back and we look for the loopholes of where the information is missing, and then we focus in on that with the curriculum and the programming.
So at this point, yeah, and then it's fine. And we try to limit public comment to 3 minutes.
Right.
There's not that many people here, so we're giving some extra time, but I think we've gone a little far
Right.
far afield from the budget
and
question. And
Correct, it's like
Yeah.
40% decrease in math, 45% decrease in science. I don't see what we're doing to address it.
Thank you. Is there any further public comment on the warrant article 5?
Can I just say something, because I can't not?
You can.
Thank you. It's hard to, I get what you're saying, I see where you're coming from, but it's hard to say that this class is only 30% proficient, and this one is 60% proficient, because it's every student in that grade. Now, you could have this grade that is full of geniuses, and then another grade that's full of kids that struggle. Of course, the score is going to be down in a class full of kids that struggle versus a class that doesn't.
These
And
are grade
if you
after
also
grade after
factor
grade
in the
after
amount
grade.
of special education kids in each class, this grade could have no kids on IEPs, and this grade could be half of the kids on IEPs. So it's hard to just generalize your percentages.
Tammy, I'm not
of
generalizing.
scores.
I am using the scores that the principal presented from 2 years ago. You have 29% proficient in 4th grade, 27% proficient in 5th grade, 30% proficient in 6th grade, and 27% proficient in 7th grade. This isn't a one-time deal. This is a whole dearth of children.
Okay, if there's no further public comment regarding,
I
there
was gonna
is.
say one thing.
Yes, sir.
We listened and no one interrupted you when you were speaking. Tammy tried speaking and you interrupted her twice. Please be professional. We expect that from our children.
Okay, so move on to article number 6, to see if the district will vote to approve the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement reached between the Lincoln Woodstock Barford School District School Board and the Lingwood Support Staff Association, NEA, New Hampshire, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits over those paid in the prior fiscal year. Now, if you're looking at the warrant, you'll see 2 years worth of increases. Only one of those is going to be voted on. Is that not correct?
That they
That
just
is
don't,
correct.
they don't have a copy of the warrant,
Oh, okay.
but if you're looking on your budget sheet, this would be on, that's the last page, 19. It's warrant article, support staff contract.
So the increase, the first increase at 2022, 2023 increase to $30,000, $30,176 is the increase this year. You have to note both years worth of the contract for the purposes of the vote, but for the purposes of this year, the increase will be $30,176 and will be $19,582 the following year if voters approve that warrant article. And further, to raise and appropriate the sum of $30,176 for the 2022-2023 fiscal year. Such sum representing the additional costs attributable to the increase in salaries, benefits over those salaries and benefits over those paid that would be paid at current staffing levels. The school board recommends this appropriation. Well, I think we're going to be voting on that. but let's see. Yeah, this is you. Is there any board comment on that issue? Any public comment on that? Okay, then we will move on. Article 7. Shall the district, if Article 6 is defeated, authorize the Lincoln Woodstock Barford School Board to call one special meeting on its option to address the Article 6 cost items only. So that's, yeah, that explains itself. I don't expect there's any questions on that. To see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $140,000 for the flooring replacement project, including but not limited to the Lingwood High School main office, guidance office, special education classrooms and offices, and the humanities wing as part of a multi-year project. This is a special warrant article per RSA 32:2, Roman numeral 6D, and RSA 32:7, Roman numeral 5. The school board recommends this appropriation. Or, again, we'll be voting on that one, but is there any school board comment on that? Any public comment on that? Okay. Article 9. To see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $60,000 to be added to the Special Education Capital Reserve Fund. The sum represents the amount estimated to be received from the state special education aid from the prior year expenditures. The school board recommends this appropriation. I'll just briefly state that this will likely have no tax impact to the towns. This is money that we're going to be receiving in grant-funded aid from the state or sort of emergency aid from the state aid,
Expected to receive it.
because we had some significant special ed expenditures that were unforeseen this year. So we put out a bunch of money. We're going to get some of that money back from the state in this current fiscal year. We took that money from our Special Education Capital Reserve Fund because we didn't have a choice. It was a very significant amount of money. And basically the state's going to give us some of that back. So that's what that represents, that's $60,000. Is there any other board comment? Public comment on that?
I'm a little confused because if we approve the warrant article, then that's money that that the towns are expected to collect from us. So if we're getting it from another source, why are we also approving it as part of the warrant article?
Deb can explain sort of the mechanics
We
of
have
it.
to approve to get money back into that trust fund. That's how we're gonna get the money from the state. It's gonna come to the school, gonna go in our general fund, but we want to put it into the trust fund. The only way we can put it back in the trust fund is to write a warrant article like that.
Thank you.
Any other comment on that? The next, to see if the district, Article 10, to see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $100,000 to be added to the Special Education Capital Reserve Fund. The school board recommends this appropriation. Again, that's going to be voted on. And again, that is, you'll see that that's significantly more than we are typically asked the taxpayers to put into that fund. And the reason is because that fund was very significantly depleted due to unforeseen expenditures this year. When I was talking about the budget, I noted that $90,000 of the increase that we're seeing this year in the overall operating budget is costs associated with increased special ed funding for out-of-district placements. I think there was some discussion last year about the size of the Special Education Trust Fund. It was a trust fund at the time. It's now a capital reserve fund. And essentially, the response is we need that amount of money because these out-of-district placements can happen without any notice and at very significant costs. And so what happened was we had one this year. We had a significant out-of-district placement that cost us a lot of money, and we had to use the money that we had stored away in the capital reserve fund for special education. And what we're trying to do with the $100,000 and then the $60,000 that we're getting from the state is to try to get our special education capital reserve fund back up to a point where we can sustain another unforeseen expense. So we're now budgeting in the budget for the expense that we know is coming because it happened last year and it's going to happen again this year. We are trying to get the budget, the reserve fund back up to a point where we can afford another unforeseen issue whilst we are already spending money on you know, one that we know about. So it's a lot of money, but it's necessary to protect us against, protect the district against, you know, sort of these unforeseen expenses that, you know, that they come up. They don't come up necessarily all that often, but when they do, they're big. So is any other school board comment on that issue?
No, I think you explained it well.
And that other amount had built up over time.
Correct, right. So
Now it-
Deb, do you have what it was before at the end of last year?
It was just about 200,000, 194.
So that 194,000 was money that we had put in, you know, $10,000, $20,000 at a time over the course of several years. And then it takes a pretty big whack all in 1 year. So again, that's why you're seeing this with significant increase this year in the request. Any public comment on that? Or any questions about that? Yep, Jerry.
If nobody else.
Yep.
Jerry, yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate the way that special ed lottery works in the state that if a child shows up in your school system, the local taxpayers are they're almost all the cost for that. You're saying, so what you're doing here is you're kind of assuming we're gonna have one next year, and this warrant article number 10, the extra 100,000 will go a long way towards maintaining reserve should we end up with 2 students.
So that's correct. So that and the $60,000 that we expect to get back from the state, based on the discussions with the administration, is what we believe, once we put it back into what's already there, to be sufficient to cover us for a second unforeseen. So when we have a need in the district, like an out-of-district placement, sometimes it comes up in the middle of the year or at the beginning of the year with some student moving into the district and we don't know about it, so we didn't budget for it. That's what that fund is for. That happened this year. We know that need exists now, and so we have budgeted for that, and you'll see that in the line item for the special education. It's a very significant increase in that line item because we have a known need that we're budgeting for. Now we want to make sure that if something like that were to happen again, that we have enough money to fund it, because the way it works with state aid, obviously we pay it and then we get some of it back. So we have to have enough to pay it up front and then hope that the state has enough money to pay it, or the, you know, the funding in whatever program we're asking for it to give us at least some of that money back. So we expect to get $60,000 back. That's nowhere near what we paid out, but it's obviously a significant chunk. So that's what that's the number that we've arrived at to get us back to where we need to be, so that we don't have some sort of catastrophic issue.
Can you share roughly how much it did cost without providing any, protected information of the student?
Yeah,
Close to 200.
close to $200,000.
Yeah, real close.
So it's not, it's very, very expensive. And it obviously that's, sometimes when we know that that's there, we can budget for it. When we don't know it's coming, we need to have a sort of a store to protect against that. Any other questions on Article 10? Okay. Article 11, let's see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate 60% up to the amount of $60,000 to be placed in the school facilities expendable trust fund, with said funds to come from June 30th unassigned fund balance available for transfer on July 1st, 2022. This is one of the articles that basically we have every year where we're putting money aside in the trust funds to be used for facilities projects. This is the facilities trust fund, and will have no tax impact to the district taxpayers. Any board comment, public comment? Okay. Article 12, to see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate 10% up to the amount of $10,000 to be placed in the school vehicle expendable trust fund, with said funds to come from the June 30th, 2022 unassigned fund balance available for transfer July 1st, 2022. And again, that's no tax impact. It's taken from unused funds. Any questions on that from the board? Any public comment on that? Okay. Article 13, To see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate 10% up to the amount of $10,000 to be placed in the school equipment expendable trust fund, with said funds to come from the June 30th, 2022 unassigned fund balance available for transfer on July 1st, 2022. Again, trust funds taken from leftover money. Any comment from the board? Any public comment? And Article 14, the last budget-related article here, is to see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate 20% up to the amount of $20,000 to be placed in the school technology expendable trust fund, with said funds to come from the June 30th, 2022 unassigned fund balance available for transfer on July 1st, 2022. And same thing, unassigned funds and no tax impact on that. Any board comment and any public comment?
All that. So those last four total $100,000. Those would be, my understanding from what you said is, if there's $100,000 unspent from this year's budget, it would first go to these trust funds.
That's correct.
And you anticipate that there'll be more than 100,000 or less than 100,000 at the end of this year's budget year?
Currently, right now, looking at where we're at, we should have enough to fund those trust funds. As long as
maybe a
we,
little more, I guess.
and we're using, again, like they said, with the special ed, because we have that cost, we're using that reserve to pay for, otherwise we wouldn't have had enough, put it that way. So,
Okay, and the only other warrant article, there's several petition warrant articles submitted. Those are not on the agenda to be discussed tonight, except for one, because it has a potential budget impact. That is the warrant article, the petition article regarding school audit, engaging the comprehensive support improvement program to a maximum of $35,000 with either New Hampshire DOE, approved contractors demonstrating success, or West Ed. So that is a petition article that will be voted on by the voters, but with respect to the budget, because it has the potential to impact the budget or the overall expenditures of the district, I think the board is going to be voting on whether or not to support that or recommend that expenditure. I would just say, and I think that was at least referenced earlier by Mr. Sherwan, but we do have demonstrated success working in the district currently. We have a contract with them that actually exceeds the amount that's being proposed here. And so there is the potential that an article limiting the amount of money that we can spend with demonstrated success could potentially impact our ability to go forward with currently contracted services. Is that a potential problem? Is that not a problem? I mean, from your perspective?
I don't think it's a problem to excuse me, to use the money towards another year's worth of support from demonstrated success.
Okay, so the money that we currently are spending with them would not be impacted, in your opinion, by approving additional funds for ongoing.
Correct.
Okay, I'm just worried that this puts a cap of $35,000, maximum of $35,000. If we are already contracting with them to the tune of, I think you said $47,000, that if we need $47,000 worth of demonstrated success assistance, that we're going to be capped at $35,000 by this warrant article. That's my concern, and I guess that would be, that's a concern. If that's not a concern, then I guess it's not. But
I mean, you'd definitely be short some money. If you're going from 35 to paying 47,000 now. And if we're going to be getting 35 next year, then it would cut down on the level of services that we would be provided from demonstrated success.
and I guess my concern is the language of to a maximum of $35,000. So yeah, so if we're counting on utilizing their services next year, that we would be then limited in what we could do with them. I don't know. I don't think that that's the intent of the article. It doesn't seem like that would be the intent of the article, but it may be the effect of the article, I guess. That's my only concern. That's the only comment I have on that. Any other board comment on that?
I agree with you.
Okay. Any public comment on that? Oh,
Yeah, basically, that's a program, as you know, that's been implemented in schools in New Hampshire that fall below the 10% of academic performance. So that article is meant to do in that, then the school falls into the comprehensive support program. So that article was the intent to get specifically that program applied to this school. I don't think we're doing that right now. I think we're contracting them for services that might be related, but not to that thing that they do with schools that fall below 10%. So I think they're two different things. There might be some overlap, but that article is intent to do an audit, an academic audit like they do in that program, the comprehensive support program that they do in all New Hampshire schools that fall below 10%. And I don't see if you contract them with services now, I don't see why that would inhibit it from doing that one specific program. But yeah.
Okay, thank you. Jared?
I would just comment that if I voted for the budget and then I voted, and the budget includes $47,000 for that, and then I voted for a warrant article, I would expect that would be different.
Yeah, I think the sort of tricky part of that is the demonstrated success, I believe we've been using grant funds for.
Yeah, we used to.
And so it's not technically in the warrant, it's not technically in the budget at this point. It's stuff that that we're just sort of taking advantage of assistance for some of the catch-up educational funds. So
real quick, it does say West Ed in there also.
Yeah.
So you can use a different
Okay.
contract.
Any other comment on that? Okay, I think we will close public comment, or I'll take a vote to close public comment. Tammy?
So moved.
Okay, oh, yeah, motion by Tammy, second by Joe. Thank you. And a vote, Tammy?
Yes. Yes.
Jasmine? I'm an aye, Jasmine?
Aye.
Kevin? Joe? All right, thank you. So at this point, the board will go through each article and vote on whether or not to support that. With the opportunity to basically make any comment with respect to, if you have any further comment on those, but with respect to Article 1, I guess we need a motion
We
to,
don't need anything.
we don't need a motion.
1 through 4.
1, 2, 3.
Oh, okay,
You
sorry,
can
yeah.
do 4 if you want, but 1 through 3 you don't.
Okay. Well, I'll accept to motion to recommend Article 4 as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Joe. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? And that motion carries. I will accept a motion to accept Article 5 as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Joe. And is there any further comment on that? Hearing none, I will, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? And abstentions? And that motion carries. I will accept the motion to approve Article 6 as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Joe. Any comment on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? And abstentions? And that motion carries. I will accept a motion to recommend Article 7 as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Joe. Any comment on that? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And abstentions? That motion carries. I'll accept the motion to recommend Article 8.
So moved.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Ashley. Any comment on Article 8? Okay. And all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And all those opposed and abstentions, and that motion carries. I'll accept a motion to recommend Article 9.
So moved.
Thanks, Tammy.
Second.
Oh, thank you, Ashley. Any comment on Article 9? No, hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And abstentions? And that motion carries. Article 10, accept the motion to recommend Article 10 as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Tammy.
Second.
Thank you, Jasmine. And any comments? All those opposed, signify by saying aye. Aye. Those, oh, okay. Rewind the tape. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed signify by saying nay. And abstentions. And that motion carries. Apologize for that. Article 11, accept the motion to recommend Article 11 as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Tammy.
Second.
Thank you, Ashley. And any comment on that? Hearing none. All those in favor of accepting Article 11 as presented, signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, signify by saying nay, and abstentions. And that motion carries. Article 12, I will accept the motion to recommend Article 12 as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Tammy.
Second.
Thank you, Jen. Any comment? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And abstentions? And that motion carries. Article 13, I will accept the motion to recommend Article 13 as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Tammy.
Second.
Thank you, Jasmine. Any comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? And that motion carries. And Article 14, I'll accept the motion to recommend that as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Tammy.
Second.
Thank you, Jasmine. Any comment? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? And abstentions? And that motion carries. And do we need a vote on the $35,000 one?
You do need to make a recommendation.
Recommendation? Okay. So with regard, what's that? Yes, yeah. So I'll accept the motion to recommend the petition warrant article regarding school audit, engaging the comprehensive support and improvement program to a maximum of $35,000 with the New Hampshire Department of Education approved contractors demonstrating success for West Ed.
So moved.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Ashley. Any comment on that?
But Jay, if we vote on this as written, I know the general opinion is it's not going to affect how much we can give this company, but how do we know that for certain?
Yeah, we don't. That's, I guess.
That's right. Will need to be investigated. but
Yeah, that
Yeah.
is the sort of the
it's a
issue.
concern until we.
I guess my only other thing is, it seems, like, is it redundant? We're getting these services through grants. Are we adding a warrant for something that we're doing through grants?
I think it really, at this point, doesn't matter, because whether we support it or not, it goes on the ballot. It's a petition. We don't have a choice, but it must go on the warrant.
Right.
So we just now have to decide if we're going to support it or not support it. Whether we recommend this passes or we don't recommend it. That's all.
I think there's going to be confusion about
Right.
its intent versus
I agree.
what we already have outlined in the budget as
And
a support funds for that program.
Yeah.
I will say that, at the district meeting, supporters of this article will have an opportunity to talk about what the intent of the article is. Hopefully, maybe by that time, we'll have a better sense of whether it will have the sort of adverse impact that there's some concern about, or if, as Mr. Schroeder once suggested, it being sort of a separate, distinct program that it would not affect what we're already doing. And maybe we can get an answer on that from our district attorney. District attorney? Okay. So, I think, from my perspective, I don't have any issue with what it's proposing. I think we can certainly do that. I do have concern about it capping what we're already doing or affecting what we're already doing. And so that's my 2 cents. Any other comments on that?
Seems like if it was additional up to 35, something help clarify for anybody.
Yeah, unfortunately, we can't edit,
Well-
so.
Yeah, no,
And once we know, if it doesn't affect what we can spend in the grants and whatnot, then we can clarify at town meeting. We voted this way because this is the information we had. Now we know this.
Correct.
And, or whatever. So, I mean,
If we abstain, it still goes on. And
No, it goes
people
on no
can
matter
still
what. Goes
talk
on no
about it.
matter what.
Okay.
It goes on.
Just gonna say whether you recommend.
Yep,
Yeah.
or don't
Sure.
recommend. All right.
I think the intent is good.
of course.
I mean, I can recommend bringing it to the voters. I just don't know enough about it to recommend
Right.
its intent.
I just read it. Goes to the voters anyway.
Right, yeah, we don't,
But that's what I mean. That's what I'm voting on right now. If I vote aye, because I want to give the voters a chance. to
Well,
vote.
you're, well,
Even
our,
if you vote no.
right, our
it goes to
vote,
the
yeah,
voters.
No, I know that.
Our
Oh,
No, I'm saying my personal vote would be to let
Oh,
the
I see what you're
voters.
saying. Okay.
our vote tonight, though, is to whether or not to recommend
Yes.
passage of it. So, we need to make sure, I guess my concern is voting to recommend it if it's going to have potentially adverse impact. Fortunately, we don't know that right now. So I am certainly comfortable changing my position at the
Exactly.
meeting
Mhm.
if we find that it is not going to have an adverse impact, because I don't see any issue with what it's proposing, so.
Yeah, I'm inclined to err on the side of caution and then rectify that at the district meeting if we have to. Yeah.
Well, if there's no, well, I guess, is there any further comment on that? If there's no further comment, then we take a vote. All those in favor of recommending the petition warrant article, I guess, is this numbered at all, or it's just?
It will be.
Okay, I'll just read it. All those in favor of recommending the petition warrant article labeled school audit, engaging the comprehensive support and improvement program to a maximum of $35,000 with the New Hampshire Department of Education, approved contractors, demonstrated success, or West Ed. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Okay.
All those opposed,
Nay.
nay, and abstentions.
I'm going to abstain, just due to lack of knowledge.
I understand as well. Due to lack of knowledge.
That's a tie.
Okay. So, I mean, I guess, can we,
Can we like get
Can
more
we-
info?
can we,
I just don't want to tie
Yeah,
our
because
Yeah.
this has to be,
Okay.
tonight is the night.
Yeah.
We have to do this tonight,
Okay,
one way or the other.
where that's a tie, I mean, can we, are we allowed to then say,
ties are
move
de-
to take no position? on it
Ti-
at this
No,
point?
ties are defeated.
Okay,
If you don't, exactly, the tie is defeated. If you
Okay, so
don't
then-
have,
so the motion is defeated and the
Correct.
school board won't recommend that. And again, we can update that position as we get more information. Certainly happy to do that. That concludes the business of the budget meeting this evening. So I will hold the board to adjourn. Tammy,
yes.
Ashley?
Aye.
I'm aye. Jasmine?
Okay.
Kevin?
Aye.
Joe? All right, then the budget session is adjourned, and I will immediately call to order the regularly scheduled school board meeting.
Yeah, literally.
So that's amazing. Okay, first item on the agenda this evening is the approval of the minutes of January 26th.
I'll make a motion to approve this meeting minutes of January 26th.
Thank you. Any comment on that? Oh, sorry, seconded by Joe. Any comment on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And I will abstain because I was not present for that.
Thank you, Sharon.
And that
Doing awesome
passes.
minutes.
Correspondence?
No correspondence,
And then,
except for the NCES report that I did put in the packet.
and I did not receive it either. Deb, Business Administrator's Report.
There's manifest for this week over there.
Is that it?
That's it.
Great, thank you. I've been a bit busy with the budget stuff.
Yeah, right.
And Dr. McGann, superintendent's reports.
So we did, Mark, Deb, and myself met with Wayne Gillian as a contractor regarding the elementary HVAC, and we are on schedule.
Fantastic.
With everything, so everything seems to be moving forward, so we're going to start moving forward with that.
Great.
Again, just a reminder, your February 23rd is your school board meeting, and it's the last meeting before your school district meeting, so you'll have a few items on there that will need to be done prior to the school district meeting. You have your times and dates of the meeting. On the 15th, voting begins at 2. Here, so, and it ends at 6, and the voting will take place in the high school multipurpose room. And from 5:30 to 7 will be dinner at the high school, and the meeting will take place in the high school gym, not in the multipurpose room.
Do we have a quorum of the board to be present for voting?
Do what?
So the quorum of the board should be present. Actually, the entire board is supposed to be present during voting. But they usually just look for a quorum.
Right. Okay.
And have you ever, we get audited
Never done that.
every single
Never done
town vote, town meeting,
that. Oh.
we get an audit. Especially during like when there's presidential elections or the midterms, but it's the Hampshire law, there's supposed to be the entire board present, but they will accept a quorum.
That's not something that we've, okay.
Yeah.
Can we just double check with,
Yep. that's
Check with
what
Robert.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, Robert has
Would
it.
it be an RSA?
Yes,
Good one.
actually.
I
Yep.
mean, if we need, if the answer is we need to do that, then
Yeah.
obviously we'll make arrangements to do that, but,
Yeah.
yeah. And I can work on that. That's on the 15th.
March 15th.
I just put it in my kit.
Is that it for you?
Oh, okay, so then, again, we do, the next I can do at the, in another agenda item.
Okay.
And I know while we're on that, I talked to Deb earlier about inviting Robert to the moderator to the meeting prior to the district meeting to go over the warrant with him. Is that something we want to do?
Like on the 23rd?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean,
We usually get together with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We usually sit
At the
down.
SAU
So,
office.
yeah, but I mean, coming to the meeting, he has come before. But
Right,
that's-
right, right.
yeah, It's a good idea.
I know he does that at the town level every year. So, maybe just offer him the choice.
Yep.
And if he chooses, we can put him on the agenda. Thank you.
Mr. Pribbenow, principal's report.
Thanks for having us. So there was a letter that kind of went out, and it's going to be going out too, I guess, with the newsletter, talking a little bit about attendance. So some parents have kind of reached out to, because we've had to address them with attendance. So some of the attendance issues state, if you're gone X amount of days, then you don't necessarily earn credit for that. But based on competency learning and based on the fact that COVID might have gotten in the way, and we're talking to kids about, if you're sick, stay home kind of thing. A lot of what we're seeing is a big increase in absenteeism. But with that, what we're doing is we want to push teachers and kids and parents to communicate a little bit more efficiently with each other. So just kind of worried about that, but some people might have gotten letters. And I would say at this point, they're not really in jeopardy of losing those credits. But we definitely need to make sure that our kids are coming back to school when they can and do the work when they're at home if they're up to it. With that in mind too, we know that lately we've seen a lot of uptick in like mental health issues at the school. Several cases and kids just kind of being down. And so, again, I would encourage parents to be aware of their children and what's happening with them. And if they have any concerns, please let us know so we can do what we can to work with them at school if need be. On a lighter note, prom is February 19th. And then also we are,
It's not prom.
is it prom? I'm sorry.
Which-
I always think it's prom because we always do that. Prom.
What?
My bad, sorry.
Yeah, well,
Sorry.
Used to call it the winter carnival.
Also, we are looking for our AP teachers to attend some workshops this summer to kind of shore up things that are happening with our AP programs. And it's good for them to get a refresher every few years, and we have a few people interested in that. We're gonna be
Or the
looking
St. J.
for them to go to the St. J
The
workshops.
best one.
Yeah, and the also the other thing that I want to address, in case you weren't at our meeting last week when we explained some of the data in the high school and the district. You know, there was a big calling of give us the district data, what the state reports to us. And if you look at the district data, and I'm up from K through 12 district data that's reported to the state from testing that we do, we have outperformed the state in every single category for reading and math, except for science, because they don't give a comparison for science.
Right.
So the last 4 years prior to me being here, from 2017 to 2019, we're on average about 7-8 points below the state. This year, when it comes to ELA and math combined, we're above the state by a good 5 percentage points. Same thing when you look individually with just math, and when you look with math, actually, it's probably more like 7 or 8 percentage points, and reading ELA proficiency as well. And these are the things that the state gives us. It's not a breakdown on specific content strands. It's what the state is telling us based on our testing. And I said it last week, and I said again this week, that I'm proud of the job that we're doing. And when we look at the comparisons to us in neighboring counties, or not counties, I'm sorry, neighboring school districts, we're outperforming them as well. And that information is available here too. So I just want to say that our school is doing a tremendous job, and we're working, but it's slow. So we can nitpick, but ultimately I'm looking here and it's plain as day, we're making gains. Thank you.
Test scores can forever change.
Yes.
It's like 5 to 10 years. or something.
Any questions for Mr. Rubenau? Committee reports. The safety committee meet or something? I thought I saw the chief of the fire department loitering around the other day. With you, yeah.
Oh, it's like, doesn't tell.
Policy met tonight.
Policy met tonight. And we do have some policies on for second reading.
And some of them we sent to first.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Sent to first, like for next meeting.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the only thing that we're doing, we are dealing with moving from, or actually approving
Seconds.
seconds tonight.
Correct.
Okay.
No,
So,
want to do that now?
yeah, let's do that now, unless you have some sort of general update from the policy committee regarding some of these other ones.
No, I don't think so, no. And you've got all the second reading policies, and nobody has any questions about any of them. And
I did.
yes,
Yes. I had just one question about the school search policy.
what
So-
one is it?
So, yeah, let me find it. It's the
JIH.
Their property or the students?
this, so it's the, I think it's the same, is it the same one?
No, property is different than principal.
Yeah,
Student searches and,
JIH is the one that I was looking at,
JIH,
because
okay.
it deals with student searches of their persons and property.
Yeah. Oh, it's cool.
And I said two concerns, and number one, I think that generally this is just basically tracks the law as it stands with regards to student searches on property, the sort of reasonable suspicion standard for determining whether or not it's, lawful to search a student. My two primary concerns are that this parents or guardians or our policy says the parents or guardians should be notified after the incident. I just feel like before any search should happen of any student, we should be notifying the parents of an issue. And so,
Oh, we talked that to death.
We did talk.
and if I'm in the minority on that, that's fine. That's just a,
That's true.
The only problem with that is that if it's a safety issue, if there's suspected something on a student that is going to cause a safety issue for that student or anyone else in the building, that waiting to get a hold of a parent and call them in and the whole, that was the issue there. And I did talk to Lincoln Police Chief because I was curious, because I'm not a lawyer and I don't know the law. And I, I looked up what I could and then spoke with him and literally showed him the policy and he thought it was spot on.
Yeah, I mean, it complies with the law. I just, we don't necessarily have to, be minimally compliant with constitutional
Right, right.
mandates. I mean, we can provide a little bit more protection for the students by way of these sorts of things. I don't, and maybe I'm wrong. This isn't something that comes up all that often, I'm sure. But I just, it seems to me that some of these things can be, in my line of work, I represent juveniles that are in these situations, and school searches can be particularly traumatic because of the nature of the school, of why they're at the school, of the sort of the position of authority of administration and the people sometimes conducting the searches, and that these types of intrusions, that may not bother an adult, can be particularly traumatic for students. And I would prefer that, if we're talking about looking through a kid's backpack because we have suspicion that there's a handgun, that's a little bit different than looking through a kid's backpack because we think he might have a vape. And I think that we should, that maybe we should make a distinction if there's not an imminent threat to the safety of the students presented by the suspicion, that we should wait until we have, that the student has an opportunity to speak with their parents, and that we have an opportunity to speak with, or the administration has an opportunity to speak with the parents before we conduct a search.
I absolutely agree with that.
That was one thing. Okay, and then what's that?
I'm trying to process how that works in my brain.
Yeah, because sometimes, so best practices, basically, I mean, I haven't had to do this often, but best practices, I feel like it's important to call the parents and let them know what's going on. And like I said, I have not had to do that very often at all. And I know that when I was not here and Jenny was taking my spot, she did the same thing. So I think best practices in our mind says that we want to communicate rather than not. But the other part of it is, you're still looking at illegal substances within the school. So I don't know. I guess I really don't know, but I think just generally speaking, as a person who I would call first, but I don't know that you necessarily need to have it in a policy. I don't know why we wouldn't or would. I can't really go either way.
And I guess, I understanding that we're sort of setting out policy for you, but also other folks that maybe follow you, or I guess I would just.
So what are you recommending? What do you want to see?
I would say that absent an immediate threat to school safety,
Okay.
then that
do it.
we at least attempt to call the parents in advance of conducting a search. If you feel like that the parents can't be reached, or if you attempt to call and the parents can't be reached, then move forward as you would normally. This is just one of those things where calling the parents after we've conducted a search of their child is never going to be a good conversation.
No.
And again, it's these types of incidents are particularly traumatic for kids, and so I think we should make every effort to give them an opportunity to speak with the parents, and that may resolve the situation anyway. So I would suggest an edit just to number 9. In the event of a student search, the administration will, and absent an immediate threat to school safety, administration will attempt to contact the parents in advance of the search. If no contact can be made, then contact will be, then they will attempt to make contact after, I guess, something of that nature.
Yeah.
And then the other issue is whenever possible, 2 authorized persons shall be present during any search. I think that should be absolute.
Absolutely.
No, whenever possible, just
Yeah.
because I can't imagine any situation where we couldn't get at least 2 people
Again, it's
present.
best
Agreed.
practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that that's what you do, but, we should be clear on that policy. That's right. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's to protect the district, that's to
Right,
protect
right,
you, that's to protect the
right.
students, that's to protect
I do
everybody.
very little by myself.
So, So those are my two edits on that.
Okay.
And
Agreed.
so
Absolutely.
any,
I mean, Jay, I'll just give you an example. I agree with you on there. And even like locker searches, it's the same thing. I have somebody go with me if we have any reason to believe. So it's just like you said, it's just smart for everybody.
so maybe can we put that one, can we make those edits and put that one back on for second reading?
Absolutely.
Thank you for that, Jay.
And that was it for comments on all. Sorry.
Do you want to do those now?
Yeah, so I will accept the motion to approve JFAB, admission of tuition and non-resident students, JICC, student conduct on school buses, JICE, student publications, JICE-R, student publications, productions, and website publications, and JIHB, searches of student operated automobiles.
And
And JIHB-R, student operated vehicle search report. And that's sort of just the form, right?
Yeah. So
So,
moved.
thank you, Tammy.
Second.
Thank you, Ashley. Any further comment on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? And that motion carries. Next agenda item, is there any other policy or any other committee meetings?
No.
Okay. Moving on to business requiring board action, staff nominations, recommendations, and resignations.
I do have a resignation. Georgia Karen will be resigning at the end of June 30th.
You need a motion to accept that.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to accept Georgia Karen's resignation with regret.
Thank you, Tammy.
A second.
Thank you, Jasmine. Any comment on that?
Extremely right.
And just like to thank her for her service to the district over the last few years. She sort of stepped into when we were in a pinch, and it did very well for us. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? And that motion carries. Budget warrant articles, final board recommendation vote. We did that in the. or do we
The
do-
only,
I know it's weird because we don't have a budget committee.
yeah, I don't know if
Normally
you have to vote again, because normally you guys would vote now because the
Right.
budget committee would have
Yeah.
voted before.
It was our meeting, so we.
Right.
Okay.
But we do have some additional articles
The
that are going to
petitions,
appear on our, that will appear on the warrant that you guys have to sign. So I don't know if we need to.
well, it doesn't matter because
Discuss
we need to discuss them. They go on the warrant regardless. We don't have, the ones that have the, correct amount of registered voters signatures. We don't, they go on there whether we like it or not. So
Just so
do
you
you
know.
want them? Do you want them read or does it matter?
I mean, we don't have any discussion to say yes or no
Nothing.
on whether or not they go on the warrant. We
Yeah,
have,
change
it
the
is what it
wording.
is, right?
So-
So,
Yeah, after tonight, we're gonna prepare the final warrant, which is gonna, we have 15 articles, it's gonna be 20-something articles now. When we add all those petition articles on, and then, so you guys will have to sign, come in, we'll let you know, you'll have to come in and sign that, along with the budget form, the MS-26, that will be posted for the warrant.
When does that need to be assigned so you can post it? How long?
Well, we have to get it like to the newspaper on, we have to send it the 18th, so it gets in the newspaper on the
Okay.
23rd.
So we all need to make sure we make them next week too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so we'll let you know, again,
Okay.
once we go through all those petition articles and add them on,
Okay. Thank
once
you.
they've been all run over.
Thank you.
so just, if you just gonna like send out a text or an email to us, let us know.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. New business, 2022, 22, 23 school calendar.
Correct, that's in your packet.
Yeah.
Now, the process we do with that is we work with the North Country school districts as well as with the state. And we look at all the different vacations and see if we can match them up as best we can. Whitefield are always start school after Labor Day. However, the majority of the schools do start before Labor Day. That was really the only distinction between the calendars. They have it pretty well worked out now because it's usually that way every year. So kids don't miss out on anything.
Do you need approval on this tonight?
It's not, we will need it by the next board meeting.
Yeah, that's usually like July though, right? I mean, should have one on that.
People start asking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want it approved tonight, or do you want us to wait till the next meeting?
Yeah, no, that would be good if we could do it tonight. You feel comfortable?
Yeah.
So
I think that's what shades of gray.
That's the same week we started last year. Same week.
that's a pretty late February vacation again. Basically the
I
same,
looked at that,
same
yeah.
week as this year.
Yeah.
And then
February distinct.
the last week of April as well.
Yeah,
Is that, so you're saying that that's basically what all the North Country does?
except April. Well, we have the
Well,
kids
we
that go
prefer
north,
little
to the
kids.
school, so we try to line up
Right,
with them, so that, yeah. And I like that April vacation is that last week, because it's usually warmer in Virginia that week.
That's warmer in general, you can do something outside.
Right.
It's snowing, so.
Right, accept the motion to approve the 2022-2023 calendar as proposed.
So moved.
Thank you, Tammy.
Second.
Thank you, Jasmine. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And abstentions? And that motion carries. LAU plan.
We're still waiting on this. The state, what it is that, but the Department of Ed has left that building that they're in, and they have moved to another building. So there's,
Oh.
they've been in the process of packing and moving for the last month or so. So that's why it's kind of stayed on there, but I leave it on there so that I keep calling them and emailing them every once in a while to make sure they haven't forgotten about us.
Any COVID-19 update?
Right now, we did get notice that there will be some changes, but I haven't heard, we did notice that they took off the, what was it again? Sharon? What plan did they take off? What is it, the toolbox?
Yeah, the toolkit is no more.
Toolkit
It's
is
been
not on
replaced
it.
by a
Oh.
two-sheet
Yeah.
piece of paper.
Yeah.
A
Okay.
two-sheet.
It's starting to minimize. the
So we
plan.
should review that then next meeting,
Yep.
because that may
Yeah.
have an effect on,
Right.
because
right.
that
We
was
haven't
part of
changed-
what
right.
our
Yeah.
recommendations are based on. So let's
Mm,
keep that on and maybe we can get a copy of whatever's coming.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay.
So far.
And we may have more updated.
Yeah, and
changes.
can we get that just in advance of that meeting?
I have a question too while we're there, because Mike was talking about absences. Are a lot of the absences due to, either COVID or exposures?
We have a big uptake, like, excuse me, in January.
Yeah. So
Other than that, it was just spotty, but sometimes it's just some kids that we have who are chronic absent kids
Gotcha.
that we have to stay on top of. I wouldn't say a ton of them are like chronic absenteeisms, but just know that in January, that time frame that we had there was pretty high for absences, and those don't count against.
Okay, so if someone has COVID or an exposure or something, that doesn't count towards it, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
or
those
or
are-
the
That was my
quarantine
question.
because of families and stuff
Right,
like that.
Okay,
It's just basically what we were doing is just an
perfect,
awareness.
I was
Yeah, and that
curious,
was explained.
fantastic. I have a kid in school, I didn't get the letter, but thank you for
It'll be
answering.
on the,
It's fine.
oh, right.
Yeah, no, it's
So
fine.
don't have to worry about his
Right.
dates.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And ESSER funds?
Nothing else?
No, we
Mary?
just, we have this ARP ESSER use of funds plan update that's due every 6 months. So we just went through a big webinar with the state on that. And so that filing period's coming up March 9th. So that's just, there's a use of funds plan and then there's a reopening plan. So there's all these plans. And again, that is because it's federal monies and it's what the feds are requiring.
And we still have some projects potentially earmarked for some of this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, again, the learning loss projects
Yep.
that we discussed, but our biggest project right now that we're working on is the high school HVAC.
Okay. Thank you. Recognition of the visitors, public participation. Don't see any students. We have.
You are not a
Yeah, hold
You
on. We don't have an official teacher rep this evening.
We do.
Oh, we do.
Oh, teacher,
Oh, okay.
sit in the crowd. You guys see right here.
Yeah.
I was sitting here for the other meetings.
So you're on. Now's your time.
I didn't get anything to pass along to the board. So my previous meeting's comments stand.
Thank you.
Thank you. And community.
Wait, no, anyone?
No.
Megan was, I just want to say thank you to the administration, the staff, and Blue Mountain for extending the ski program.
Yes,
We have a
absolutely.
very excited kid in my house.
Yeah.
Agreed.
That was definitely nice to see, and I know that there was probably some work on in the back end of that, so we certainly appreciate that.
Will they be officially thanked to that? Loan, yeah, that's some kid do a nice little card or something. And
That's a good idea.
yeah. That'd be neat.
Any other community comment? Paul?
Yeah, just real quick about the test board presentation last week. First off, it was radically different than the previous years. And I think the previous years, the chairman requested the same format. But I had a real difficulty with some of these numbers in here. I won't belabor them, but I'm reading off the DOE website here. And we went from 9th in high school to 56 in our ranking. That's out of 84 high schools. So we went from the top 10% to the lower third. That's just a fact. And it's right off the website, okay? We did have a 40% drop in math and a 45% drop in science. That's a fact. If you want to compare profile high school, they got 90% proficiency in science. So if you want to use a standard, you can use profile, which is right up the street. There has been a significant drop in our performance, period. And to say otherwise is disingenuous. To combine scores with English and science and math and these other things that we've never done before, I don't think is being transparent. And the other thing, we didn't include the NWEA scores this last time when we have previously. And I think we're done with those. And I would like those to be public and public information for all of us, because we paid for those scores. And we've included them in the past, and we should include them now.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Do we have any non-public for this evening?
No, I do not.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Joe. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Don't forget to sign over
And
today.
that motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.